Please welcome in the CFL on TSN's Jim Barker. I'm just going to read this, Coach. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers defeated the BC Lions 25-0 Thursday in a sterling defensive effort, limiting the visitors to 102 yards in net offense. BC quarterback Vernon Adams Jr. did not finish the game after appearing to injure his leg. Nobody saw this one coming, man. What was your take on the Week 9 lid lifter?
Absolutely shocked. They're coming off of a bye week. Again, you try to figure out how can VA be as bad as he was. I mean, it was like, is it new receivers, Hatcher playing at W and then moving McInnes and now different people. It's kind of what Zach Collaros went through. He just seemed discombobulated the entire game. And, I mean, there was never a point where you thought, okay, he's going to be fine, or he had a couple bad series. It was as bad a game as that youngster's played since he's been in the league, and there's cause for concern. I mean, why did that? How did that happen? And there's just a lot of speculation around about why. Why would all of a sudden this happen where he's just seemed completely disconnected? And there was even talk about the Nathan Rourke being there. And then, from what I understand, they had him in the locker room after the game, breaking the team down. And, those kind of things might affect a starting core. I don't know. I just, there's something wrong, and I don't know what it is. I was as shocked as you were. No way did I thought Winnipeg had a chance to win the game, but to win it the way they won it, and again, I can't, Winnipeg, all kudos to them, but that BC offense was horrible. I mean, you can't be worse than that. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
I know. It's cool. Nobody knows. But I mean, I'm smiling because the BC Lions were the toast of the town for most of July. Like, is VA not old enough and veteran enough? Is he too old to just say it was just a bad game and scrub it off? Because you hear that from coaches all the time, right? Let's just burn the tape and move on. Is that doable here?
Well, they were 5-2 coming in, so it's not like they're setting the world on fire. And yeah, he'd thrown for a lot of yards, but Bo Levi has 3 more touchdown passes than him and fewer interceptions. So to say did he lead the league in passing yards? Yeah. He had a couple of 450-yard games, but he had some other games that were shaky. And again, is he an MOP player? I mean, they're 5-3 now, and that's coming back to the pack. And it's good for Rider fans because a win on Saturday for them, they can really create some distance for themselves. So. Again, I can't explain it, Rod. I've been in this thing a long time. I don't think I've been as stunned watching a game as I was watching that one last night. That was just bizarre.
Well, I was broadcasting baseball out here in the Western Canadian Baseball League. I didn't see that, nor the NFL Hall of Fame game, which I want to brush on with you. But on the flip side, Carlos in Indianapolis wants to know, has Winnipeg turned the corner with that statement win? Was that just like a dagger in by the Bombers? Like, enough's enough. They were back to their old selves. What did you see from the Blue?
Well, they played great defense. There's no doubt. I mean, but how much of it was great defense? I never got the feeling. I mean, Willie Jefferson, you noticed him more. But Dolegala threw 3 passes that he went up and batted down. And it's like, I get Dolegala's 6'8". But at some point, you look at the 6'8" guy and say, maybe I should work a different throwing lane than throwing it there. So I saw that game as BC being pathetic. I thought that Winnipeg, again, they're striving to get their identity back. Zach was, 25 of 32, I think, for a lot, over 300 yards, and he's getting a little more comfortable with his receiving core. There was a long pass to Ontario Wilson that was a big one that should have been reviewed. That was not a catch, but it was a big play for them. Oliveira, again, the more they use him, the more he's kind of the bully that leads the bullies. And even though they won that game 25-0, they didn't win it in bully fashion. Earlier this year, when they beat BC, was not BC. They had won a game earlier this year, and I thought afterwards, wow, the bullies are back because they won that using bully ball. This one, it was bizarre. It was like one team just decided to send their JV team, and they had a bunch of suspensions, and everybody playing had never played before. It was just a weird feeling, that whole game.
By the way, we got to spend a minute on Montreal at Hamilton tonight. We have a lot of viewers and CFL fans in Eastern Canada. You'll remember the older, he's not old, but former kicker, Chris Milo. His dad, Franco. I just love him. I was out in Montreal. He's like, Franco's his name. He goes, "What? I watch you on TV every day." I said, "Why don't you write into the show? Why don't you engage with us?" "Who talks to the TV? I just watched the show." Like, Frank, I had no idea you were watching every day. A lot of CFL fans in Eastern Canada. So,
sure.
Alouettes and Ticats is a biggie. I guess we're going to find out if
Huge.
Davis Alexander is Cinderella, like is the pumpkin turned into a carriage or whatever. That's what I'm watching for tonight.
Yeah, I thought Moose had a great point in your first segment when he said that this is a whole different ball of wax for Davis Alexander. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to be a solid player, but this game's going to be totally different than coming off the bench at halftime. The starting quarterback, Caleb Evans, shoot, at halftime of that game, I said they got to get this guy out of there. He's killing them. And sure enough, they make the switch and it completely changes the game. Totally different thing now. They'll have watched some film of Davis. He'll be the starter, so it's on his shoulders now. Cody's not even dressing again, so he's not there. And there really is nowhere to turn because Caleb Evans obviously is in some kind of a slump. So there's a lot of pressure on Davis Alexander, which is different from when he came in off the bench. So I look at this Hamilton team, and Bo Levi, to me right now, Bo Levi is the most effective passer in the league. He's got 17 touchdowns. He's, I think, thrown 5 interceptions. He's getting comfortable with his receiving core. His receiving core is getting comfortable with him. And I think Scott Milanovich has been using formations and using a tight end and things that other people haven't used differently. He's using them very effectively in the passing game, controlling the underneath coverage and things like that. So this is a great matchup between Scott Milanovich and Noel Thorpe. And those two guys go back. They've played against each other a long time. But that, to me, is the most fascinating part of this game is how Milanovich tries to attack. Noel Thorpe is going to play everything in front of him. You're never going to blow them out. They're not going to give a bunch of huge plays. But will Hamilton be able to hold on to the ball and not turn it over? They've had, I don't know if you remember last year in the playoff game, they're playing Montreal, and they took the ball right down the field the first drive, and Keandre Smith fumbled on the 20. And they just they lost their mojo after that. But they took the ball and were just doing everything right. Against Montreal, you have to be patient, and you can't turn the ball over. If those two things happen, I think it's going to be a tough call for Davis Alexander. Jason Moss, fantastic on the other side, but you're still dealing with your backup quarterback. And I know they need Cody back, and it's kind of like Davis Sanchez said when he went down with that hamstring, is whatever it takes. They took him off the 6th game this week. Whatever it takes, give it 1 week more. And that's what I think they're doing. I think they're not even putting him on the roster because he probably, Cody, he's saying, I can play. I know I can go, coach. And they don't even want to they don't even want to mess with it. So, which I don't blame them because he's more important to them long term than to just get 1 win. But I like Hamilton tonight. I think it's a great game.
That's what got Cody in trouble in Saskatchewan. By the way, I assume you, coming back too early, I assume you read the game notes like VA, just back to VA. This popped into my head. He's on pace to be just the 5th quarterback in CFL history to throw for 6,000 yards. And it's the Mount Rushmore of there's 4 that have. Doug Flutie, my dear, sweet Ken Austin, David Archer, and Anthony Calvillo. You'd think there'd be more. You'd think Dunnigan would be on there, especially when you got a 700-yard game. So I don't know. After last night, that might have dipped. I got to ask you about the NFL kickoff rules. They debuted last night from everybody. And I'm like, well, if you want player safety, you're not going to get excitement. What do you think about the fact they've debuted these kickoff rules in the NFL?
You know what really was disgusting, and I was flipping back and forth between the Winnipeg game, but what was really disgusting to me was they're doing it on a time when they're bringing Devin Hester into the Hall of Fame. And Devin Hester, I can remember every time he returned to kickoff, it was exciting. It was like you wanted to be on the edge of your seat. You didn't want to miss that. He was fantastic. That's not happening anymore. And that's what I thought about when I watched this thing, and I'm like, what is this? It looks like rugby sevens. I hate it. And again, I don't want people getting hurt, but this game's been played a long time without, and we talked about it when we talked about the CFL going to these rules. I think it changes the game. It changes everything. Like I say, I thought it was a perfect thing that Devin Hester's going to the Hall of Fame, and they did it the first game they ever did it was the Hall of Fame game when he's going in, because there will be no more Devin Hesters.
Irony is what I would call it. He's the first returner to go in solely as a returner, and then you do this. What NFL training camp stories are popping out to you in the NFL?
Well, obviously the Nathan Rourke story is important and for people in Canada. The Atlanta is an interesting choice because, they have Kirk Cousins, who I'm not sure he's maybe a 1-year answer, maybe 2, and then they drafted Penix, who is their long-term answer. Obviously, they drafted him in the first round, and that's going to be their long-term answer. And Nathan's hoping to become the third. I still think he's going to end up, potentially back in Jacksonville. Or can he be the third in Atlanta? Possibly could be over Taylor Heineke. But honestly, right now in the NFL, I haven't followed a lot of it. I'm down going to camps, but I'm working so much now with TSN, I can't do that. So I'm hoping to get down to watch Buffalo and some of those teams here in the next week or so. So I'll be able to talk more about that. But we got to talk about Trey Ford. I mean,
do it.
That's the story. That's the story this week. And,
can they save him? Can he save them? Can he save them?
I don't believe so. I think their organization, it was like we talked about when they got rid of Chris Jones, when they fired him, was that going to help them? They've gotten worse since then. Like I thought they might, because there was no friction in the locker room and things like that. It was just a change to make a change. Now this one, I do think he'll give them a bump. I think players will play a little more excited. We have to remember, this is not a rookie coming in here. This is a guy who played last year in 9 games, and he won 4 games. So he actually knows that offense better than McLeod Bethel Thompson. So I'm expecting that he comes in and he's going to play at his best level. I mean, it's not like we're going to have to wait. It's like, here's what you're going to get with Trey Ford. And I think he's going to have a few weeks to show what he can do. And what I think is interesting is if he plays a half and he doesn't play very well, would they go back to McLeod? I mean, nobody talks about what happens if. And again, I think Trey's going to come out and he's going to have some excitement to him. His style of play, obviously, is exciting. And if he can, again, Corey Mace played him last year when he was in Toronto. I went through that entire film. He's going to do a lot of 6-man pressure, but play zone behind. They're not going to put people in man-to-man coverage where he can get the easy big plays. They're going to make him move the ball that way. Usually the other thing that Corey did I thought was interesting was when they rush the passer, it's an old Don Matthews thing. It's called get blocked, stay blocked, meaning once you're pass protected, you stop pass rushing, and now you're going to move laterally on the line and either try to bat a ball down or scrape for the quarterback. They did a lot of get blocked, stay blocked. So if a guy's coming free, he comes. But if he's being blocked, he's going to now throttle down, and he's going to play more laterally, which will, again, to kind of contain Trey. And he did a good job of that in Toronto, containing Trey. So this is a great first game for Trey Ford. He's going to be going against a defensive coordinator that's as good as anybody in the league, and Corey Mace. He's going against a guy who's played against him, and Corey Mace. And Corey Mace has got the athletes to be able to stop him. So if he goes out there and lights it up, then yeah, he can bring them. He can bring them out. He can bring them back. But again, that's still to be seen.
For me, that's the game of the week. We have a poll every week, and Bombers-Lions actually won. But I just think the Trey Ford curiosity factor, plus being in Sask at home, for me, it's the game of the week. Jim, this has been awesome. This is why the fans look forward to it all week. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
All right. Thank you.
The CFL on TSN's Jim Barker.